Doop 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 doop. So, I wonder if my voice sounds different today because I have a new microphone. Yay! And with a new microphone, and now I also have my headphones on so I can hear my own voice sounding nice through the new microphone. I feel a little different. This feels a little more professional. Okay. I'm kind of in a weird, sort of excited mood. So, let's get into Writer Reacts to Fantasy Tropes. What are writers saying about tropes now? This is an episode 2 of Fantasy Tropes. Episode 1 was the first ever video on this channel. Now, episode 2. They matter. Okay, let's get into it. First, Fox Note. And I know I go over this so many times, but I am going to react to articles and give opinions, and the purpose, I don't know why I have this in. This is just for writing advice, but is this advice, this time it's trope, so is this trope actually helpful? That's what it actually should say. Sorry about that. I recycle my slides, so that's what happens. That's a thing, that happens. So this is a good thing about these slides, is that, and you can't see my face, so you can just have me on in the background while you do things, because I read everything and tell you everything. I even tell you that there are orange slice graphics on this slide right now. So if you like oranges, maybe that's a good thing too. Okay, well, let's get into it. This is so weird how crystal clear my voice sounds in my ears, and I did so many mic tests and everything, so hopefully it'll sound good to your ears too. That's kind of weird. That is so weird. Anyway, so I found this article. It was written this year, July 27, 2023, by Gloria Russell on selfpublishingschool.com. And it's an article called 17 Fantasy Tropes, What They Are and Why They Matter. I thought, that's interesting, because I read an article called the 21 Most Popular Fantasy Tropes. And now this article is about what they are and why they matter. I'm thinking, why they matter. Interesting. So this is the beginning of the part. So these are all screenshots. I didn't do anything to them. And I'm just going to read them. And when I screenshot them, I do read it a little bit, but I don't read it through all the way. So a lot of it is going to be a first reaction to these screenshots. If you've been watching my videos, you're probably familiar. And if you haven't, well, that's how we roll here. So I don't know what kind of... I usually am not in this attitude. I don't know what's going on today. It's the good microphone. That's what it does. Okay. So it says, a trope is an element which is commonly found throughout a genre or type of media. It's usually figurative. In other words, a character symbolizes a specific trope. The reader has seen this trope before, so they're able to understand what's going on a figurative level. Okay. Using tropes is like using shorthand. Interesting. Because readers are familiar with them. They know what to expect, and you can use this in your writing to play along with or subvert expectations. Tropes are not the same as cliches, which are overused phrases that don't really convey anything. This is written, this last sentence is written in bold, as if to make a point. Okay. The fantasy genre, in particular, involves many easily identifiable tropes. Some new writers will take these tropes whole cloth. I've never seen that word before, whole cloth. Without altering them or doing anything interesting, which is how a manuscript can become cookie cutter or unoriginal. Being aware of which tropes you're using will help you keep things fresh and interesting. So without further ado, here are some common fantasy tropes for you to use in your writing. Okay, well, that's interesting. First of all, whole cloth. What the heck of a word is that? The bold part where it says tropes are not the same as cliches, which are overused phrases that don't really convey anything. Sounds like this person, Gloria Russell, has something against cliches. You know, cliches are not bad. You know, they're not they're not bad. Yes, they're overused and everything, but I mean, in the end, you know, human beings have been writing stories for centuries. Since the beginning of time, we've been writing stories. I'm pretty sure everything is a cliche by now. Is that a hot take? I don't know. What is a hot take anyway? What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Fantasy genre in particular involves many easily identifiable tropes. Yes, I can agree with that. That is true. Some new writers would take these tropes whole cloth. That's a weird word. Without altering them or doing anything interesting. Okay, and being aware of which tropes you're using will help you keep things fresh and interesting. But wait, isn't that they're saying that new writers will alter tropes, will not alter tropes or do anything interesting, making them cookie cutter and original. And then they say being aware of tropes will help you keep things fresh and interesting. I don't know. Does that sound contradictory to you? It sounds kind of contradictory to me. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like, wait, is that contradictory? Because I feel like it's contradictory. So anyway, why don't we move on? I have to click the screen because it's like you weren't doing anything for a while. I'm gonna disappear. Okay, so we're moving on to common fantasy tropes. This is weird. I didn't realize my background is on top of my my background with the pattern is half on top of my cutout. I don't know how that happened. That's weird. Looks like it's half transparent or something, which isn't the case. So, common fantasy tropes. These are apparently tropes that we've most definitely seen before. So let's see if we have seen them. Okay. If you are looking at the screen, look at my Fox Girl avatar. This was drawn by somebody, which everything about this illustrator is credited in the description if you'd like to check them out. Okay, so the first common fantasy trope is the chosen one. Well, that is very common. Yes, that's so very, very common. Hold on. Coffee break. Okay. That is some good white mocha. Okay, so the chosen one. This character, generally the protagonist, learns one day that they're the hero. Something about them is different, and they're destined to save the day. They might have some element of divinity or supernatural power to them, or they might be able to use magic in unique ways. Whatever the case may be, they're the ones chosen by fate, prophecy, or extremely complicated supernatural circumstances to save the day. They said save the day twice in one paragraph. The most obvious example of the chosen one trope is Harry Potter, because Voldemort chose him to be his last Horcrux. Harry is essential to defeating Voldemort. This unique tie to Voldemort gives Harry a special insight throughout the series. Now look, about Harry Potter being Voldemort's last Horcrux wasn't, sorry, spoilers, but if wasn't, I don't think, revealed into the last book when they're going around looking for the and it's not even revealed until the very end, until the last battle, right? So Harry Potter doesn't know he's the last Horcrux of Voldemort. He doesn't even know about Horcruxes at the beginning, at the first I'm just thinking about the movies, but the first movie, right? So I don't think, but Harry Potter being the chosen one, that is true. The reason that he's the chosen one isn't because he's in his insight being of Voldemort's last Horcrux. Like, he doesn't figure that out until later, right? Harry Potter fans, tell me if I'm right. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if this statement is right or wrong. Does he have this special insight from the beginning? Is because they're pointing it to this. Anyway, never mind. Never mind. There's nothing to do with this trope. Okay. Okay. When I first read this, I thought, wait, does it really say what I thought it said? And then I kind of ignored it so that I could give a natural kind of reaction to it during this video. Don't you think that's a little... That's not what it is. Is this unique tie is pointing to him being the last Horcrux, but you didn't find that out until the end of the movie, right? Right? Until the end of the series, in the end of the story. Isn't that how it went? Anyway, yeah. Well, so let's go back for a second. This character, generally the protagonist, yes, learns one day that they're the hero. No, not always, right? No, I don't think so. No, they don't learn that they're the hero. They learn that they're different. They learn that they might be destined to save the day, or they learn that maybe something about them is so unique that they are going to do the big bad. They might have some element of divinity or supernatural. Well, yeah, well, not entirely. I mean, you can, I think, have a, let's think about Harry Potter. As far as I know, he wasn't like somehow like had magic. His magic was somehow incredibly super powerful, right? He didn't know any of that, right? I don't think so. He didn't know he was particularly different, right? He just became the hero at the end, right? I mean, there's a little bit of debate about, right, if Harry Potter is actually the hero at the end, because there was Neville Longbottom, who was maybe actually the real hero and talk like that. But anyway, well, some element of divinity used to be. I mean, wait. If we think about fantasy tropes and we think about the chosen one, what about what's his name? Lord of the Rings. What about the hobbits? They don't have some like divinity or supernatural power or able to use magic in unique ways. Nothing. And they became the heroes, right? So, the chosen one, kind of. They were chosen ones, right? Right? I think so. So, yeah, anyway, well, the chosen one is, yes, a common fantasy trope. What they're saying about it is kind of, I don't really know. Some of it is true. I mean, not true, but some of it is correct. Some of it is kind of not correct, in my humble opinion. That's what I'll say. Yeah, I made my little thing wiggle. I forgot I'd done that. Okay. Did I? Yes. Okay. Anyway, this is a new fox avatar I had drawn recently. Isn't she cute? Anyway, she's going to keep wiggling. I figured out how to do that. Next common fantasy trope is the mentor. The mentor archetype is just what it sounds like. This character teaches our protagonist about themselves, their powers, and their destiny. They often have They often have spiritual insight as well as practical knowledge, and they often help the hero along their inner journey as well as their quest. This character is usually an older man, but they absolutely don't have to be. Star Wars is full of mentor characters. Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi are the most obvious examples. Yes, they are. Let's move on for a sec. The Dark Lord. The Dark Lord is the evil bad guy. Evil bad guy who wants to destroy the world. They're usually pretty plainly bad without a ton of nuance, and they usually represent capital E evil, and the evil is actually in a capital E, in the story's world. They symbolize the gross underbelly of human behavior. In The Lord of the Rings, Sauron is the Dark Lord. His motives and personality aren't super important to the story because Sauron's function in The Lord of the Rings isn't really to be a character. He's meant to represent evil, which our heroes must defeat to preserve the world. Okay. Okay. Alright. Okay. So, yes, the mentor archetype is just what it sounds like. Okay, the character teaches our protagonist about themselves, the person listening. So it's like, the wise old man kind of trope. I definitely like to use the wise old person trope. Wise old man, the wise old woman. I did once. My little avatar stopped moving. There we go. I did once do a thing where the mentor wasn't an old person, but most of the time they are an old person, because if you are old, typically you've had experience, and you're wise because you've had experience. And so the younger people, the younger adventurers or whatever, they look up to you because you have experience. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, often have spiritual insight as well as, I don't know about spiritual insight. Spiritual insight in what sense? What are you talking about? Are you talking about, like, if the magic was somehow related to the spirit? I don't really know. Or are you talking about more of a philosophical kind of thing, like they give life lessons? Like, oh, young person, young apprentice, when you do a bad thing and it makes a person feel bad, what do you think you should do at that point? And you apologize because you feel bad, or whatever they say. I don't know what they say. I don't even know what I said. I don't know what I just said. I was just spewing nonsense. Anyway, so moving on. Yeah, Star Wars has mentor character. Yeah, Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi are the most obvious. Yeah, I would say yeah. Is Yoda? I have a question because I'm not really sure about Star Wars lore, even though I think I saw all of them, but I'm not sure. I think there are some that I haven't seen, some like side story things that I haven't seen, but I've seen the main Star Wars, I think all of them. Yoda, is he an old man, or is his species just like that they are kind of old looking? I don't know. Anyway, moving on to the Dark Lord is an evil bad guy. I mean, if you say he's an evil guy, isn't that enough? You don't have to say evil bad guy. It's saying, like, it's like saying the kitty cat. It's redundant. Well, that's just, I mean, you do you. They're usually pretty plainly bad. Is the Dark Lord always usually pretty plainly bad without a ton of nuance? Dark Lord. I mean, I think you can have but then if you're thinking about, okay, this is an article about common fantasy tropes, and if you're just thinking about the common fantasy tropes without the twist that some people have put on them, then yeah, maybe they don't have a ton of nuance. But I feel like, I mean, like, if you think about who's that? Darth Vader. Isn't he considered like a Dark Lord? But when you watch the movies about like his backstory or something, he's a little bit more like, I don't say nuanced, but like there are reasons why he's the way he is. And even though what he's been doing is unforgivable, like you can kind of understand where it comes from, right? So he's not a gray character. Gray characters are those guys that, oh, they seem evil, but wait, are they doing good things? Are they doing bad things? I'm not really sure. Not really sure. So yeah, I guess maybe Darth Vader is a Dark Lord, but if you look at him from like a purely evil, like, oh, he's doing pure evil things, but then you look into his backstory and it's a little bit different. Is that actually the twist on the Dark Lord? I'm not really sure. So anyway, we're moving on. If you hear any rustling in the background, this microphone picks up things really, really well. But it also picks up my tiny voice. So we're just an experiment with this video, with this microphone. Okay, next. This is incredibly long. So this is the damsel in distress. Damsel in distress. There's a lady. She's upset and she needs to be rescued. The damsel in distress, could be a princess, a queen, the hero's love interest, a childhood best friend, a sister. All that really matters for this trope is that she's a woman who needs saving. This is a great example of why it's important to be aware of tropes. The damsel in distress, when played straight, can be pretty sexist. Have you ever heard of the sexy lamp or sack of gold test? If the woman could be replaced with a sexy lamp or a sack of gold without changing much, you haven't written a character, you've written an object. It's not impossible to write a woman who needs to be rescued in a way that honors her personhood. In Tangled, for example, Rapunzel is a girl locked in a tower who desperately wants out. How do the writers avoid turning her into a sack of gold? They give her agency. She gets herself out of the tower. Okay. So, damsel in distress. Yes. I mean, I feel like, yes, it's a common fantasy trope, but I feel like this damsel in distress being a common fantasy trope is it happens a lot in older fantasy. Am I wrong? Is this still a thing these days? And I feel like a lot of women or female persons in fantasy these days are a lot of strong sort of women. They go and they look for their own sort of freedom and revenge or whatever. And it's not really the damsel in distress anymore. I mean, I think a really common damsel in distress is it's not even a fantasy story, but Princess Peach and Mario, except for the movie. Have you seen the movie? The Mario movie? It was actually pretty fun. I mean, it's even more fun if you at least know the game a little bit. And I don't play the game, but I do like to watch gameplays on YouTube. Like this guy called Ryukar. I like to watch his gameplay. It's fun. But I don't do it myself. I tried, and it was really hard actually, because I'm not used to using like consoles and stuff like that. Anyway, so anyway, the damsel in distress, I don't feel like it's all that common nowadays. What do you guys think? Do you think it's common nowadays, or do you think it's like not? It's still out there a lot. Anyway, we're moving on. Antagonist to hero. The antagonist to hero trope is a redemption arc where an antagonist becomes allied with the hero or becomes the hero of the story. This can be done in a ton of ways, but we are, of course, going to look to Zuko for inspiration. Zuko isn't the main antagonist of Avatar: The Last Airbender. His father, the Fire Lord, is. This means that when Zuko joins up with the gang, there's two A's in there. Is that supposed to be how it is? The conflict doesn't go away. There's still a bad guy to defeat. He also struggles over the course of almost the entire series with his family's role in the destruction of the four nations, and watching him see and reckon with the effects of his father's imperialism makes his turn to the good side compelling. So, I have to apologize. Sorry, I don't know Airbender. I only know the live action. And I've only heard that Zuko is like some complex antihero. That's all I know about Airbender. So, my knowledge is really, really limited. So, if there are any Last Airbender Avatar people listening or watching, tell me what you think of this part. Also, tell me if this gang thing is supposed to be spelled with two A's or if that's a typo. Or is it Gong? I don't know. Because isn't like the main character, like, or the Airbender guy's name, isn't his name Ong? Isn't that what his name is? Is that where it's from? I don't know. So, anyway. Yeah, so, they say we are, of course, going to look to Zuko for inspiration. Yeah, maybe because he's very popular, but I don't really know. I don't know anything. I don't know anything. Okay. So, the antagonist to hero trope redemption arc, when the antagonist becomes allied with the hero, becomes the hero of the story. Do I know anything like that? I mean, what about Kylo Ren? Is that his name? I don't. His was a very interesting. Have you guys watched it? Okay. Spoiler. He is like the dark side, and he is like, but he's in the dark side, but he was actually Luke Skywalker's apprentice or something. And I'm kind of very vague about on this part, but he thought that Luke Skywalker was going to kill him, and then he goes on some kind of rampage or something, and now he's like the next Darth Vader situation with the mask and everything, and Darth Vader is like his uncle or father or something. I actually don't know, okay? Actually don't know. I actually can't remember all the lore and everything. I just enjoyed the movies. That's all I did. He, in the end, actually, he and Rey can actually kind of connect with each other through the Force or something, and they can like talk to each other and touch each other and like trade weapons and stuff. So they ended up fighting together at the end, and then he is dying and she ends up saving him, and then he saves her or something like that. There's a lot of saving going on at the end, but essentially he kind of like switches over to the good side like at the last moment or something. He realizes that being the sort of Dark Lord position isn't really him, and he never wanted that anyway. So that's what happens. So he's not entirely the hero, like the sole hero. I mean, like, he and Rey together are the ones that got rid of some kind of evil order of people or something. But he did go from antag to like good guy. So that's an example. And I mean, I think this is antagonistic hero isn't really like a common trope, but like a popular trope. It's like a twist on the chosen one. I think that's my opinion. Okay, we're moving on. So 17 fantasy tropes. The next section after common fantasy tropes, we're getting into high fantasy tropes, because apparently these are different from common fantasy tropes. Okay, well, first one is the wizard. Think Gandalf. The wizard is usually older and usually male. Again, super not necessary. I think the writer has something against characters being older and male. I guess maybe because they are a female person. Um, anyway, and they often live in some kind of solitude. They have special knowledge and use of magic, and they can offer special guidance, artifacts, magic. Okay, we're saying it again, or insight to the hero. If this sounds like the mentor, that's because the wizard often functions as a mentor, although they don't have to. Okay, so yeah, the wizard, think Gandalf, think Dumbledore, but they don't always have to be. They don't have to be older and male. So you mean like female wizard, but isn't that a sorceress or a witch in terms of naming? Um, can't think of high fantasy. I mean, yeah, the wizard is a. I'd say it's a common fantasy trope. I don't think it's supposed to be like just a high fantasy trope. I mean, there was the um magician's apprentice movie, and that was taking place more in modern times, wasn't it, with Nicolas Cage as like the wizard, and then this guy. It was basically that Mickey Mouse animated thing where he's like the apprentice to the wizard, and then he gets all the brooms dancing and everything, and then it becomes flooded. That's essentially what happened in the Magician's Apprentice movie. Was that a Disney movie? It might have been. Um, and and then Nicolas Cage is like the magician, the wizard, you know. And yes, he is male, but this was in a more of a modern setting, not really like a high fantasy setting, which is usually like not modern. That's my understanding of it. That anyway. Yeah, the wizard is often the mentor, yes. And he has use of magic, and he gives guidance and artifacts and magic and insight and magic and insight and magic. Okay. Next is the magical artifacts. High fantasy often gets hung up on doohickeys. Okay. Calling it doohickey sounds like you're kind of making fun of, but you might not be making. Maybe it's a term of endearment. We don't know. Okay, moving on. Magic necklaces, enchanted wands, haunted heirlooms, you name it. In The Lord of the Rings, this is obviously the ring. Magical artifacts often give their possessors some kind of power or magical ability, and they're often necessary in the final fight against the bad guy. It's also pretty common for authors to combine the magical artifacts trope with the chosen ones trope by making the chosen one the only person who can successfully wield the magical artifact. Okay. I say in the middle of this because the story that I'm currently editing has a magical artifact. So I'm kind of a sucker for magical artifacts. I love the objects, the ancient objects with the stories and the legends attached to them. It's just so good, so wonderful, so nice. And I just like coming up with different things that people can have as artifacts. So in the story that I'm editing, there is an artifact that the main character, which is essentially the chosen one, but not entirely. I have a little twist on that. Yes, it possesses some kind of power, which enhances her own power, and might be necessary with the final fight against the bad guy. Might be, might not be. We don't know. I have a bunch of twists in my story, which I'm working on. The magical artifacts, the doohickey. I never used that word ever in my entire life. Doohickey. And I know it's a word. I know people use it. It might be a term of endearment, but it seems like, I don't know. But anyway, yes, so it's pretty common. Yes, magical artifacts and the chosen ones are quite together, aren't they? Yes. Does Harry Potter have a magical artifact? I mean, it's a magical world. They have artifacts, everything. I mean, there's so many things. There's so many things in Harry Potter that are magical artifacts, right? I mean, there's this hat, and there's this sword, and then there's this the Horcruxes. Yeah, there's lots of them. But is it considered high fantasy, or is it considered just fantasy? We don't know, because genre and subgenre are kind of mixed up these days. Okay, we're moving on. So, yeah. Look at my cute little fox avatar. She's laughing. This is another new one I got. Isn't that cute? Okay, this last one is Secret Heirs. Our protagonist is trekking through the plot when suddenly, bam, they discover that they are, in fact, the heir to the throne. And they have been all along. How fortuitous. The secret heir might realize they're the secret heir at the beginning of the story, and this realization might kick the book into motion. It might also be revealed towards the climax of the book, a final rung in their inner journey's ladder. And I'm saying, me, I've used this before, I'm guilty. Yes, I have. I haven't for a long time. I was thinking, oh, Secret Heirs, it's so cliche, so tropey, who would want to use this? But then I thought, might be fun. So I did write a story about a boy who finds out that actually he's the prince of a magical realm. Will that ever see the light of day? I don't know. Coffee break. Drink your water. Drink your coffee. Drink your tea. Oop, I hit the mic with my cup. And that probably picked up, didn't it? Forget that if you have a microphone, you have to be careful not to move it too much or bump it too much, because the sound really picks up here. So the Secret Heirs, yes, I'm guilty of using it. Yeah, it's kind of like a I would call the secret heir trope. You have to be careful not to make it too gimmicky, because as they say, how fortuitous. Because it can feel like, oh, they're the secret heir. Now everything becomes so convenient for them now, because now they actually know the answers to through their fate and their destiny. So the whole entire mystery of figuring everything out just goes poof. And then you have to figure out how to continue on the plot after this knowledge, and then it's like, well, now what? In my story, when I used a secret heir trope, I had a sort of I made it sound like it was somebody, but it wasn't anybody that they knew. So they didn't know the boy and the other people that he was traveling with. They are looking for a magical artifact, which could be used to defeat the big bad. But what they don't know is that first is that this magical artifact can only be used by a royal who was born in that country, or who is the heir to that person who was born in that country. And so they don't know that it's the boy, and the boy himself doesn't know either. Nobody knows until the climax. I chose to do it this way because if you figure that out in the middle, like, what do you do in the rest of the story? Then it's just go to the big bad and defeat the big bad. It's like the mystery element is just completely gone. So if you're going to write a secret heir story, I think, don't. And if you do it in the beginning, you make it very, very mysterious. Like, they're a royal person, or an heir to some magical thing. But they don't know what, and maybe they don't know if this magical family that they belong to is good or not. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they're evil. They don't know. That would be interesting. That would be interesting if a character finds out that they're that they are secret heir to something. They don't know if this family is good or evil, and then they find out that it's actually evil, and but this whole time they've been trying to help this family, and then they find out it's evil, and then they're faced with this dilemma of do they go with their family that they've learned to love, or do they like denounce them because they find out that the family is evil? Now, that would be an interesting story. Somebody write that story because I'd read it. Moving on. I said I'm moving on. Okay. I said the secret air was the last one. It's not the last one. I lied. Actually, I forgot. I completely forgot that there were others in the high fantasy tropes section. Next is the prophecies. Prophecies are predictions made by someone in the story, usually a divine or supernatural entity, which spell out the fate of our protagonist. In Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson The Olympians series, the Oracle Delphi delivers prophecies to the campers, and these prophecies often determine who gets to go on quests and who has to stay home. Sometimes prophecies play out exactly as they're told. Other times a prophecy is subverted by some fine line reading. Think Macbeth being a C-section baby. What is that? Or it might be disregarded altogether. Okay? If you have a prophecy in the story and then it's disregarded altogether, I'll be like, well, what's the point of the prophecy? Yeah. Okay, so prophecies, usually a divine or usually a divine or supernatural entity, or a wise old man, maybe, or a wizard, mentor, wizard, maybe. I mean, at least someone who's lived a long time, right? And they've had experience, so they know about certain things. Although, anyway, yeah, whoops. I went forward before I went back. Wait, doesn't make sense. Yeah. Divine. I don't think they have to be divine or supernatural. Do they always have to? Usually, it says usually divine or supernatural. So maybe I would say yes, usually divine or supernatural entities, like a god or something. I don't know this thing about. I don't know. I've never read the Percy Jackson books. I watched the movies, plural, I think. Yeah, 2 movies? Were there 2 movies? I think there were 2 movies. The first one was Percy Jackson finding out that he's a demigod, and the second one was him and the Olympians, I think. No? Was that the second one? Or the first one? I don't know. Let me know down below. This thing about Macbeth being a C-section baby, I have no idea what that is. No idea. Sorry, I really don't. I have no idea. It's not my area. Yeah. Some prophecies play out exactly as they're told. I am not speaking. Sometimes prophecies play out exactly as they're told. Sometimes yes, sometimes they do. Subverted by some fine line reading. Yeah, and I think I have prophecies in some of my stories, and usually these are poems, and it's kind of like often metaphorical, so it's often like it's not exactly that like the thing that they're saying that will happen. It's not like word for word. Know what I mean? Some prophecies might be disregarded altogether. Well, then if they are, no point in putting in your story. I mean, if you're going to have a story and there's a prophecy, the reader is going to be thinking all about that prophecy throughout the story. Like, when is this going to come to play? Why? And then they come to a part where it says, it didn't matter. And they're like, well, what the heck? Then don't even bring a prophecy into the story. That is, yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the quest. So I like some good old quest stories. Those are like the sort of classic fantasy stories are like quest stories. I just like quest stories. They're fun. In a high fantasy novel, it's pretty regular for characters go on some kind of journey to accomplish their goal. They're on a trip to get something, save someone, return something to somewhere, whatever it might be. It's a quest, and it's often the framework for the plot. In the TV adaptation of Game of Thrones, Brienne embarks on a quest to return Jaime to King's Landing in exchange for Arya and Sansa Stark. Later, she quests to find Sansa, then to deliver Arya to her family. Brienne does a ton of questing in Game of Thrones, it turns out. I guess so. I'll take your word for it. I have no idea about the TV adaptation. I have no idea. I don't even know who Brienne is. I know who Arya and Sansa Stark is. I read the first Game of Thrones book. I didn't read the others. I don't know. It just became too much for me. Yeah. High fantasy novel. It doesn't have to be a high fantasy novel. It can just be a fantasy novel for characters to go on some kind of journey to accomplish their goal. And let me tell you, an adventure and a journey or quest, there are different things. So adventure, you just go on it. There's no particular goal. You're just adventuring. A quest has the goal, to find something, do something, save someone, return to something to somewhere. Yeah. I'd say the Lord of the Rings is a quest because they're trying to get the ring to Mordor, right? That's a quest. Like the entire plot of the series is about that. Journey. Yeah, you journey to a goal. Isn't the Hercules story a journey? No, it's not. Never mind. Said something weird. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, quest. Yeah, I like quests. If anyone knows about the TV adaptation of Game of Thrones and who the heck Brienne is, let me know. What did they do? Like, who are they in relation to Arya and Sansa Stark and Jaime, and what happened there? I don't mind spoilers, but some other people might, so you might want to say like spoilers and then comment after that. Okay, we're moving on. So far, I'm not. Yeah, the quest is quite common and prophecies are quite common. I don't think they have to be high fantasy particularly, but anyway. Oh, come on. Alright, we're moving on to urban fantasy tropes. Okay, let me tell you, we're getting to the end. I know that we're getting to the end. We're getting close. Okay, hang in there. Urban fantasy tropes. Okay, so secret hidden worlds. The story starts with a regular person in their regular real-world life, and then we're taken to the secret magical world. This is a world that exists alongside our world, but which doesn't interact with our world, or at least isn't supposed to. Twilight is a great example of a secret hidden world. Bella moves to Forks, Washington, and it's pretty much a regular small town until she finds out about the whole vampires and werewolves thing. Not only are there vampires and werewolves, but they have a long, complicated lore, and they live mostly in secret from the real world. Much of Bella's conflict in the Twilight Saga comes from being caught between these two worlds. Yes, I read Twilight. And I liked it, sort of. I mean, at the time I liked it. It was kind of depressing, but, yeah. It was, I mean, it's a fantasy with romance and werewolves and vampires, and it's like everybody's introduction to this new and fascinating subgenre. And my aunt is a librarian, and she sent me the first books, so in a box series, I think it was. I read all of them, or devoured them. This is great coffee. So, yeah, secret hidden worlds. And I would say that portal fantasy stories can be secret hidden worlds too. I have a series of books that I'm writing. I'm writing a lot of books, aren't I? And every single book is a portal fantasy, and these all start with characters as a regular person in their regular real world life, and then they come up to a portal somehow, or they find one somehow, and then they go into some magical world that they find out that they're a part of. That's the whole how all of the books in the series begin. Um, I did that on purpose. I wanted them all to be portal fantasies. So, um, Twilight as a secret hidden world. I would say yes, it can be a secret hidden world. I guess I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit different. Um, yes, it's secret, but it's not like secret to the main character, right? I mean, because she's have I don't know, but is it a secret hidden world? Because it's not a secret hidden like world. Like I'm just thinking about a completely different realm, but it's just everything happening in that town, right? Is that a secret hidden world? I would say a secret hidden world is like the Wizard of Oz. If you've read any of the Oz books, like the original Oz books by L. Frank Baum, then you might categorize those as, then they might be, if you have read them, that you would know maybe that when I say that they are a secret hidden world, then it might make sense. Because while the live action Wizard of Oz was more like, is this a real place or this is not a real place? We don't know kind of movie. In the original books, it was more like it's actually a real world that is hidden and secret from the rest of the world. So that is a secret hidden world. Another secret hidden world, I'd say Narnia could be considered. I mean, it's portal fantasy. I mean, if you're considering portal fantasy as secret hidden worlds, the Narnia would be one of them too, right? I think. Yeah. I don't know. Anything else? I can't think of anything else. Yeah. Because then what is the definition of worlds that you wonder? Is it like an entire world with its own seasons and everything? And cultures and everything? Or when you say world, do you mean like a fantasy world? Like when we say fantasy world, it can just be a town or a country or something that's magical and fantasy. It's not actually a planet or a entire like realm or something. Do you know what I mean? Tell me what is a world? What is a world? What do we mean when we say fantasy world? That word kind of gets to me sometimes. Okay, we're moving on. Sorry for the lip smack. Okay, well. Next, novice to expert. This isn't exclusive to urban fantasy. There are examples in high fantasy and sci-fi too, but I personally have seen the novice to expert trope most often in urban fantasy books. Ooh. The author of this article used the personal I. This is when a character, generally the protagonist, who just found out about magic yesterday, becomes the best magician in the whole world overnight. This can be done successfully, but it often feels cheap and unearned. Authors use it because it's easy, and it catches our protagonist up to speed with the magical world without needing to take the time to develop their skills. However, it often makes the reader feel like the magic isn't very difficult to wield, or that the protagonist isn't particularly skilled. If some regular guy could become a master in a week, can't be that cool, right? Not to say that it can't be done, just make sure you're keeping your readers invested. Yeah, so I have a little bit of I wouldn't say like a strong pet peeve, but it's kind of a pet peeve with this novice to expert thing. It's like, sure, you mastered that overnight. Yeah. I mean, it's impossible. Especially if you haven't known anything before. If you've known it before and you were kind of like secretly practicing for a while, then that would make sense for you to maybe pick up on some things a little easier than if you hadn't known anything about it. Um, but yeah, I thought I would take this trope in one of my stories and kind of, like get at it. So I wrote a story where the protagonist um has to fight with a sword. Okay, so but she gets the sword and they're like, oh, we'll teach you, it's fine. And she's like, okay. But then the big bad comes and they don't have time. So she does go out to the battlefield with the sword, but then I wrote it so that she ends up becoming a danger to herself and to others when she's just swinging it around because she doesn't know how to use it and it's heavy. So they take it away from her and they say, I don't think you should use this. And she's like, then what can I do? And at this point, she's barely begun to learn how to use her magic too. So she summons some vines and they like go all over the place and actually become a problem. So they're like, just stay over here. Let us do the fighting. And she's like, but I want to help too. And that sort of becomes the sort of second half of the story where she's trying to figure out what it is that she can do to help these people. And she learns that it's her leadership skills. So she does have something. It's just not fighting. But I thought I'd like have a moment like that. Like, okay, it seems like it's going to become that novice to expert trope, but it's not. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, is this a high fantasy trope? It's not really a high fantasy trope. I think novice to expert can be anybody can you can do this novice to expert trope for any kind of thing. It doesn't have to be swordmanship or magic wielding or anything like that. It can be anything. And then you just make it work, I guess. I mean, yes, they say not to say that it can't be done. Make sure you keep your readers invested. Um, Maybe if they do have learned something overnight, that maybe that there's a specific reason why they were able to learn it overnight, you know or maybe they do actually learn it only halfway, or maybe they have been learning it. I don't really know what you can do with this novice to expert. I would just say don't even use it. Just actually have them take the time to learn it. Just give more time between them having to do the thing and fighting the give more time between them learning that they have this thing and then fighting the big bad, like some actual like months or something would be nice. Anyway, moving on. All the fairy tales are true. This is similar to The Secret Hidden World, but it's a little more grounded and it involves less separation between the real and magical world. This trope introduces a specific piece of folklore or mythology, sometimes a real piece of folklore, sometimes made up just for the story, and asks outright, what if this fairy tale were true? I personally would count National Treasure as urban fantasy because of this trope. I'm not sure. National Treasure, isn't that the one with is that the one with Nicolas Cage? Or am I thinking about some other movie? All fairy tales are true, similar to The Secret Hidden World. I would say yes. A little more grounded, maybe. I would say even, could that mean that Twilight is this all fairy tales are true trope? It could be because of the vampires and werewolves situation, right? Because there's a lore of vampires and werewolves that's actually existing in that world as being sort of like a fairy tale, but it turns out to be true because an Edward is a vampire. If you didn't know. Fairy tales are true. That could also be true for like, I mean, I don't know about the first Percy Jackson book, but at least the first Percy Jackson movie made it out like he didn't know about his, that he's a demigod. So him finding that out is saying that, oh, hey, all fairy tales are true. So I think that could also be an all fairy tales are true trope. There is no such thing as an all fairy tales are true trope. This author is just naming it that way, the author of the article. Um, but yeah, maybe there's a shorter name for this. I mean, it's pretty long. It's kind of wordy. There's probably a better name. Somebody come up with a better name for this. If you're looking at my slide and you see my little icon and then you see the little words that I have, it says parentheses rats at the end, and I had that there just to remind myself which story to talk about. But in the story I talked about, which sort of kind of makes fun of the novice to expert trope, because she wasn't able to become a master overnight. This girl turns into a rat. So that's just what that is. Okay, moving on to Super Cool Hero School. The protagonist has just discovered that they're secretly a part of the magical world somehow, and now they have to go to magical world school to learn the ropes. This is often a setting where the author gets to explain the magical world to the audience, show the protagonist struggling to fit in with other magical people, and serves as a sort of launching off point for the main conflict. Again, Percy Jackson and the Olympians is a great example. Camp Half-Blood is where Percy learns the ins and outs of what it means to be a demigod, and is where he gets his first quest. Okay, like Super Cool Hero School, always a high fantasy trope. I don't really know about that, but yeah, it's a common fantasy trope. I say I haven't read any Dark Academia books, but I feel like these could be related, Dark Academia and Super Cool Hero School. Yeah, I kind of like the Super Cool Hero School trope, only because it sort of gives readers, or it gives you a sense of what different kinds of magic are in the world, what is considered as good, what is considered as bad, what are the forbidden things. So yeah, I don't know if you call it Super Cool Hero School, maybe Super Cool Magical School, because it's not like everyone in that school becomes a hero unless you're talking about Sky High. Which they have heroes and sidekicks, which was a weird kind of thing, but whatever. I like that movie. It's a good movie. I mean, they have all kinds of cool powers and stuff. The Super Cool Hero School. Yeah, the author does get to explain the magical world to the audience. It's a great way to just info dump to your heart's desire. But you have to be careful how you info dump, because then otherwise it just looks like you're info dumping. So yeah. There was a book I read. I forgot what it was, but it was a Diana Wynne Jones book. The Time... It's not the Time Machine. It's the Time... something. I can't remember. Maybe you can look it up or something. Find it for me. This book, the character ends up in sort of like a fantasy world that's sort of like in the middle of all the time in the world. This sort of middle of the middle. I'm doing hand gestures and you can't even see me. And she has to go to a school, and that's when we get kind of info dumped a bit about how this world works and how they keep time in check of all other worlds and times. I don't know. It was an interesting world, but it was a lot for standalone. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, this Super Cool Hero School sort of, I can't help but think about Sky High, because that book is it's a actual school for heroes, for students to figure out if they're a hero or a sidekick, and then they go to hero class or sidekick class. And it is the launching off point for the main conflict. The protagonist guy, I forgot what his name was, He thought that he didn't have any superpowers from his parents, but because he wasn't getting them, they usually get them when they're little, but he wasn't getting them yet. But as at the school, he realizes that he has both his parents' powers, and so he becomes a hero, goes to hero class and everything. But that means that the friends that he's made, like this childhood friend girl that he likes, because her powers are just like growing plants and stuff, she's put in like sidekick class. And so then he is separated from his friends that he just made, and then he starts getting full of himself, and then they kind of don't really like him for that, and then some other big evil comes to the school, and then they have to work together. It's a pretty good movie. You guys should watch it. It's a little bit old, I'm telling you. It's a little bit old, but it's a fun movie. Sky High, you should look it up. Even my dad likes it. He doesn't really like those sorts of movies. It's weird. So, this is the last part. This is literally the last part, okay? Okay. Science fiction tropes. There are only 3 here. Science fiction lovers, writers, people, tell me if there are other tropes, okay? Because I thought there were only 3, and I was like, 3? Really? 3? And all the other parts get so many more. I'm pretty sure there's more. Time travel. Time travel is sci-fi's version of a secret hidden world. Characters are thrust into a different time period, and this functions as a different world. Different points in history had different customs, attitudes, and expectations, all of which usually conflict with our modern-day characters. Okay, well, time travel, yes. Yeah, there's even the book Time Machine, which is pretty cool. H.G. Wells. I read it. Yes, the first time I ever heard about it actually was, do you guys, I'm going to show my age now, Wishbone. Do you know Wishbone? It's like a 90s show. There was an episode about H.G. Wells' Time Machine, and actually Wishbone the dog, so playing the character who goes back in time in this time machine and meets the 2 different creatures and how simple the world had become, and nobody is reading and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know if time travel is sci-fi's version of a secret hidden world. That's kind of a weird thing to say. It's not like the past is a secret hidden world or the future is a secret hidden world. I don't really agree with that. Characters are thrust into a different time period. Yeah. I mean, it's nothing was to say about those parts. Yeah, conflict to our modern day characters. Yeah, there was this time travel. Have I read any other time travel books besides H.G. Wells? I don't think so. I mean, it has to be sci-fi, right, though? Not sci-fi, science fantasy or anything, right? Not even that. I haven't even read. I really haven't read any time traveling. I've watched a lot of movies with time travel in them. Or watched movie recaps on YouTube and about movies or series with time travel in them, but I haven't really read many books with time travel in them. That's an interesting blind spot. Okay, well, the next one is super tech. In science fiction, it's not as common to see magic. More often, you'll see super advanced technology. If you look a little closer, though, you'll see that in general, this functions almost exactly like magic. Okay. It's a special ability with internal rules which is designed to do things which are impossible for us to replicate in our homes. I think the author is really loves fantasy and fantasy with magic. And then writing about the science fiction tropes, like she had to include this. It's not like she couldn't include it, but she wanted to connect it to magic and fantasy magic and somehow. Super tech in science fiction is not as common to see magic. Right. Yes. You'll see super advanced technology. Yes. But it functions almost like magic. I feel like the science fiction people will be a little bit, I don't know about that, about this part. I mean, saying that at science fiction is like magic, I feel like some even science fiction people, some people might even be a little bit upset about that. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a science fiction person. I've only read a few science fiction books, which I loved, but science fiction is it's not really in my not my league, but my area. I'm not a specialist in specialist. I don't specialize. I don't read a lot of science fiction. That's the thing. I like it. I like movies, but I don't read a lot of it. It's just kind of complicated to me. Anyway, next, cloning. Jurassic Park is a textbook example of this trope. It's just what you'd think. Someone has figured out how to clone, and they're not being cool about it. Clones might be created accidentally or intentionally to serve as the book's main antagonistic force, or the story might grapple with a sympathetic clone and talk about the ethics around cloning. What does it mean to be a clone? Are clones human? Double Identity by Margaret Peterson Haddix is a wonderful example. I haven't read that book, so I do not know. Has anybody read Double Identity by Margaret Peterson Haddix? Let me know. Comment down below. You guys have a lot of things to comment down below. You better get on it. You better get on it. Cloning, yes. Jurassic Park, yes. I didn't see... Did I see the original? I saw Jurassic World and the sequel. I don't know if I've ever seen the original Jurassic Park. Is Jurassic Park a book? I don't even know that. See? So, I mean, it's kind of a little bit before my time, before I was old enough to watch those sort of things. I don't know. At least my parents didn't think I was old enough. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, I've seen a lot of movies with clones in them. A lot of movies. There was this one movie, I can't even remember what it was. It's just so weird. Oh, I saw what is it called? I forgot. It's the one with, is that Tom Hanks? No, it's not Tom Hanks. Sorry, it's not. Or it is it? Who is it? It's the Mission Impossible guy. Who is that? Is that Tom Hanks? No, that's not Tom Hanks. Stop saying Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is something completely different. It's the Mission Impossible guy. His name just slipped my mind. He was in a movie. What was it called? Odyssey? No, it's not Odyssey. It's something else. Anyway, he was in a movie and he finds out that he's a clone or something like that. It's a sci-fi, science fiction. There are really so few characters. And there's like, I don't know. It's kind of a weird movie. There was not a lot of characters, not a lot going on, not a lot of epic moments, but quite interesting, I think. I mean, at least interesting enough that I watched it twice. Yeah. Anyway, so those are the 3 science fiction tropes: time travel, super tech, and cloning. That's it. That's it. There's no others? Really? No others? Gloria Russell? No others? I tried to think of others when I realized that there were only 3. I thought, wait, there has to be others. And I don't read science fiction, so I don't know. Could aliens... Is aliens a science fiction trope? Having aliens? I mean, when I think of science fiction, that's like the first thing I think about is aliens. I don't think about time travel and super tech and cloning. I think about aliens and space travel. Or is space travel its own genre outside of science fiction? I don't really know the science fiction world very much. Okay, so we're moving on to the very, very end. This is the very, very end, I promise you. So, the title of this article is 17 Fantasy Tropes, What They Are, and don't forget why they matter. But through this entire article, they haven't really said much about that. And let me tell you, okay, in the beginning of this article, in the very beginning of this video, I introduced their sort of beginning introduction sentence section, okay? And what they say, and this is what I extracted what they say. A trope is an element commonly found in a genre or type of media. It's usually figurative, where a character symbolizes a trope. The readers are familiar with most tropes. Tropes are not cliches. Not altering tropes makes a story cookie cutter or unoriginal. And being aware of tropes helps keeps things fresh and interesting. That is what the author of this article says. Okay. So, moving on, what I think and what I gather from what she said, okay? Tropes are like a guideline for writers. Knowing the guidelines helps writers write that trope. So, I know that there's a chosen one trope. And this chosen one trope, there is a protagonist and they are chosen for some fate or some destiny or something. That is a guideline for me to create a character who is the chosen one. They need some fate or destiny. I need to come up with some fate or destiny for them, which they are chosen to follow. So this is a guideline for me. So it helps me to write this trope. And tropes are also guidelines for readers. If a book says, I got quest trope, readers know exactly what they're getting into. I know what a quest is. A bunch of characters going on an adventure to do something or find something or return something. There is a goal involved. Usually it's a bunch of characters. Usually maybe some of them bigger. Maybe some of them are in love. Maybe they don't all get along. Maybe they're like a typical, like a ragtag group, as they say. And if a book says, this is a quest trope with these characters, I'm like, okay, I gotcha. And I'm going to read that book because I like a good quest book. Third point here is that I disagree that taking tropes as is makes a story cookie cutter or unoriginal. And the reason I say this is because what makes a story original is that you wrote it. You didn't get Stephen King to write it. You didn't get George R.R. Martin to write it. You wrote it. This is you writing it. So even if you wrote the exact same plot line as like Lord of the Rings, it's you writing it. So it's original. Okay? Got it? So even if you take like a chosen one trope, you take the, let me think, the chosen one trope, you take the novice to expert trope, you take the mentor trope, you use it as is. That's fine. That doesn't make it cookie cutter or unoriginal. Originality comes from you writing it, okay? I'm going to say that over and over. Originality, let me speak first. Originality comes from you writing that book, okay? This is something that I figured out when I was sort of not really suffering from imposter syndrome or everything, but I didn't know. I was searching for my originality. What is it? How can I be original? How can I write a unique story? And then I realized, hey, it's unique because I'm writing it. Well, there you go. Don't have to search anything more. I just do what I like to do. I just write what I want to write. Okay, moving on. Fourth point here that I have is saying that tropes are not cliches is a true statement, but that's not why tropes matter. This is an article about why they matter. We're going back for a second. Oh, come on, slides. Come on, slides. We're going back for a second, and in their original introduction paragraph section, she wrote in bold letters that tropes are not the same as cliches, which are overused phrases that don't really convey anything. I'm saying, yes, tropes are not cliches, but that's not why tropes matter. She's making it sound like, to me, she's making it sound like this being in bold, that tropes are not the same as cliches, is like her saying that this is why tropes matter. They are not cliches. They are not overused phrases. They convey something, which is not like cliches. But that's not why tropes matter. I think cliches matter too. And they are also like guidelines. Cliches are guidelines. Being overused is not a bad thing. And I'm saying, anyway, everything is overused at this point. So, we have come to the end, to the final end part. Saying that tropes are not cliches. Tropes are not cliches is a true statement. Why tropes matter is that they are guidelines for writers, they are guidelines for readers, And it's fine to take tropes as is. Originality comes from you writing it. Also, cliches matter too. You can't write without cliches. You really, really can't. I mean, I've tried. I have tried. You can't do it. Cliches are also like guidelines because you come out to be cliche. Okay? You know exactly what's going to happen. You know, it's actually kind of a relief. As a reader going into a strange book that you've never heard of before, you see a cliche, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen. And then it happens. You're like, oh, I knew that was going to happen. But I like it. And it's fine. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to get rid of it. In fact, don't get rid of it. Everything is overused at this point. So, that is the end of the end. Okay. So, do I think 17 Fantasy Tropes and What They Are and Why They Matter is a good article for writers? I think she lost her purpose. Because she didn't talk about why they matter. I was really interested in knowing why tropes matter. Like, what do people think about this? Like, why, we have all these tropes and they're fun or interesting or crazy or old and stale or whatever people think. But why do they matter? Like, I was really interested, really high hopes for this article, but it fell short a little bit, in my opinion. She could have done a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe she had a word count limit or something, or maybe a follow-up article would be nice. I will see if she'd written a follow-up article or if anyone on the self-publishing school staff wrote a follow-up article. Coffee break. But anyway, that is the end of this video. If you have a lot of stuff, you guys got a lot of stuff to comment in the comment section down below, but if you have, I have a question, okay. Favorite fantasy tropes, anybody? What are some that you love to see? What are some of your pet peeves? What are some of your guilty pleasures? And would you like if I talk about a specific fantasy trope? If I talk about a specific fantasy trope in my next video, like if I chose like the chosen one and just talked about it, or something like that. Or what would you like to see about fantasy tropes? What more would you like to see about them? Also, I'm really curious about science fiction tropes. I'm curious about science fiction tropes. Science fantasy tropes might be interesting to explore too. So let me know all the things in the comments down below. And that's it. The fox is out.